Okay.
I meant to tell you when I came in.
Andrew's been, not Andrew, Alan has been checking and looking and throwing salt down. So hopefully there'll be some.
Hi. There. Well, they were yelling at me that I took my mask off to take a picture.
Oh, and then
So then when I put it back on, who knows what happened.
well, it's better.
Not the deal.
You're welcome.
So it's up to us then right after your because that would be whatever which one
I'm
fits in
gonna
there?
cut it so we can do all of this music.
Well, if that's a closing song, the only, and it's up to us. It's up to us would then be the only like extra, and I won't do any of the other things sometimes that we stick in. You know.
Ready?
I am ready.
We need a second.
Ready. I am ready as soon as I can.
Okay. Well, folks, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. For our friends online, we hope that you check out our prayer book. You can find the prayer book if you don't have one at home. The prayer book will be able to be found on our streaming page, and you'll see the flip book there. For our friends that have their own prayer books or are following along here in the sanctuary, you'll see that some of our prayer books, the ones that are a little thinner, you're going to see two different page numbers. You're going to follow the page number in blue brackets. If you have a nice, thick, heavy book and you only have one option for page numbers, then no worries, you'll just follow along. We are going to begin our service with a melody that is on this little handout. So hopefully our friends who shared their prayer books, our prayer books with you, also gave you the melody for this handout, and it's on the top of the page.
This is a line from this week's Torah portion that we build a mikdash, we build a sanctuary with our presence, with our gifts. We'll start with Yai Lai Lai. Yai Lai Lai Lai. Yai Lai 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 Lai. Yai 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 Lai Lai Lai. Yai, lai, lai, lai. Let's do the English. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la la. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Ve'asu li mikdash, ve'shachanti betocha, va'anachnu nevarecha. Ne'ata ve'ad olam. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai.
Yefeh. Let's turn to page 120 and let's light our Shabbat lights. We'll bring some light into this space. We didn't have a chance to invite someone in advance, so Bill and Rachel, would you folks come and light our candles and bring some of your light and their light? We're on page 120. Holly will be joining along once you light these Shabbat candles. Thanks, friends.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Beautiful.
Thanks, friends. We are going to invite everybody to please rise if you are able, and let's turn the page. We continue with our Kiddush on 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kosho be'ahava u'ratzon hinachilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'achata ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodecha be'ahava u'ratzon hinachaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
L'chaim, you may be seated, friends. Let's turn forward to page 138 and 139. L'chadodi, the prayer of our mystics of Tzfat. We continue with the first 5 stanzas. After the 5th one, we jump to the very last one. And at that point, there is a custom to rise for a moment, face the open doors in the back of our sanctuary, and symbolically we welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst.
Ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 lai, ya lai la lai 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 la lai, ya lai la 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 lai. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekarla, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד, שמו אחד, לשם ותפארת בלי תהילה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונחכים מקור הברכה מראש מקדם משוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה ומצעי, מתוך ההפכה רב לך שבט במקבך, והוא יחמול עלייך אמר, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה, הנה שבת נקבלה, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת קהלה, יאללה לה 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 הנה שבת, הנה שבת נקבלה, יאללה לה 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 לך דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת קהלה, יאללה לה 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 הנה שבת, הנה שבת נקבלה, התנערי מעפר קומי, ושיבי תפארתך עמי, על יד בן אישה בתלחמי, קורבה אל נפשי גאלה, יאללה אלי, יאללה אלי לך דודי, יאללה אלי לקראת קהלה, יאללה אלי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבל, יאללה אלי לך דודי, יאללה אלי לקראת קהלה, יאללה אלי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, יאללה אלי, יאללה אלי לך דודי, יאללה אלי לקראת קהלה, יאללה אלי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבל, יאללה אלי לך דודי, יאללה אלי לקראת קהלה, יאללה אלי פני שבת, פני שבת נקבלה, בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובסהולה, תוך אמונה עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, יאללה אלי, Yalla la 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 v'chadati, yalla la 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 v'kat kalo, yalla la 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 p'nei Shabbat, nekabet, yalla la 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 v'chadati, yalla la 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 v'kat kalo, yalla la 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 p'nei Shabbat, nekabet.
May be seated 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Haaretz, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Haaretz, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bolechem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bolechem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bolechem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We invite you to rise if you are able, page 146.
Yadalai, 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 yadalai. Baruch et Adonai, HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam, 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 Le'olam. Va'ed, Yadalai, 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 Yai, lai, 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 lai.
Let's read together on 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. 152, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
May be seated. 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha vedibarta ba beshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam Al mezuzah beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem le'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem, le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, emet.
We turn again to 159. Sing the song of all people joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished. A gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content. Her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed. The song of peace. 158. We're going backwards. I tricked you.
This is a melody where it's a call and response. You repeat what I say. Because we are partners in that redemption between us, between God. So this is a call and response. Mi chamocha,
Mi chamocha,
ba'elim Adonai,
ba'elim Adonai,
mi kamocha,
Mi kamocha,
nedar b'kodesh,
Nedar Bakodesh.
Nora
Nora
Tehilot
Tehilot
Oseh Fele Yai lai 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 lai
Yai lai 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 lai
Yai lai 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 lai
Yai lai 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 lai
Yai 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 lai 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 lai
Mi chamocha
Mi chamocha
Ba'elim Adonai
Ba'elim Adonai
Mi chamocha
Mi chamocha
Nedar Bakodesh
Nedar Bakodesh
Nora
Nora
Tehilot
Tehilot
Oseh Fele
Osefele. Let's turn the page.
160, right? Okay. This is the last sentence of this prayer, the Chatima at the bottom of the page, that we ask for a tabernacle of peace over all of us. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haparei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haparei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haparei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
We turn again to page 164. We invite you to rise if you are able. Let's move into the tefillah together.
Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Safatai Titah. Ya la 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 Ufiagi. Ufiagi Tehilatecha. Ya la 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 Sefatai Titah. Ya la 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 Ufiagi. Ufiagi Tehilatecha. Ya Lai, 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 Adonai. Ya la 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 la, Sefatai Titach. Ya la 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 la, Ufi Agid. Ufi Agid, Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Ahavot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'ezrat Sarah, Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Ata Rav LaHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach Umarid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Ve'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim emunato lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, Umito melech menit, Umechaya, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol, Ata Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh, Ugdoshim b'chol yom Yahalelucha Selah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. Let's join together in the bottom of 175. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers, and there may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, shodcha levadcha v'yira na'avod. Our prayer for peace, 178.
Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adam lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adam lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. Bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam, Shalom Rav al Yisrael, Amcha tasim le'olam, Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha tasim le'olam, tasim le'olam, tasim le'olam.
Let's take some time for our own personal prayer. You can follow in the Siddur on pages 179 through 181. Choose any reading you like to reflect upon, or just take some time for your own personal prayer, your own silent reflections. We'll come back together again in a few moments at the bottom of page 180.
Yehiyu leratzonim refim refi vehego libi lefanecha. Yehiyu leratzonim refim refi vehego libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goalim. Yehiyu tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goalim. Yehiyu leratzonim refim refim v'hego libi lefanecha. Yehiyu leratzonim refim refim v'hego libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goalim. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goalim. Yehiyu leratzonim refim refim v'hego libi lefanecha.
Let's turn again. The middle of page 371, we move to our prayer for healing and wholeness, our Misha Berach, and we invite you to, if you choose, to share the name out loud of one whom you are thinking about right now, someone who is on your mind, someone who is in your hearts. We have started to share these little Shabbat handouts again, and so we have a list of many folks, lots of names in this middle column, people who are asking us to keep in their prayers, in their hearts. And so we're sending some strength to all of them, but if you would like to share some names, you can just lift them up all together now. 371, in the middle of the page.
Mishaberach avotenu Mekor bracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu Mekor bracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And let us say Amen.
I know that there's a lot of healing work that we need to do. And I know that there's a lot of folks who are still struggling and reeling about what's been happening in our community, whether it's fires or hurt and antagonism and anti-Semitism. We're going to spend a little time tonight talking about some of that anti-Semitism that we've been seeing on news. We know that's been happening around the country, around the world. So I guess I want to start. I think I'm a lot like a lot of folks. We don't see it so much for our kids around here. It's there, but I felt it was much more tangible when I was a kid. I remember very clearly having kids throw pennies at me because I was Jewish. I remember folks making swastikas on my locker for the football team from the other kids on the football team. I remember they even killed a rabbit and hung it from the goalposts from that same football team, also with swastikas all around the area. Why, I remember thinking, did they target me this way? And I lived on Long Island, where we all think that it's like a Jewish Mecca, but it's not really the case. I grew up in a very strongly identified Jewish family, much more so than my friends. They might have belonged even to conservative synagogues, but they weren't as engaged as my family was, for sure. And it made for some loneliness. There's no question about it for me. It made for some loneliness, the kind of loneliness that you hear about regarding people who are recent immigrants, and language or culture or art or food that they brought to school seemed different to other people, and so it was a struggle for lots of them. But I wasn't an immigrant. I was also born and raised in the same house on East Meadow on Long Island. My family before me wasn't super connected Jewishly until my older sister, who's much older than I am, she was asking why she wasn't having a bat mitzvah, becoming bat mitzvah, the way all of her friends were. It's funny, thinking back, because my mother's first language was Yiddish, and she was born in New York. She didn't learn English until she went to kindergarten. And yet my family was totally disconnected from Jewish life. Not so much from community, from relatives, with all of these old school names from Eastern Europe, but they were disconnected. But my sister really pushed the argument, and it made a transition so that she would become bat mitzvah, and that led to them joining the synagogue, which led them to having a kosher house, which my father tolerated. But when he needed something really important, we had paper plates ready for the porch outside. From the kosher home, it led to my mother becoming a religious school teacher, because she already knew Hebrew and Yiddish. And eventually, she became a religious school principal. They didn't call them educators, they called them principals back then. And I was a later in life baby. So I was the product of a family that returned to tradition in a very deep way. My growing up was with Jewish and Israeli books lining my house growing up. After Shabbat dinner, Friday night dinner, we would move the furniture in our living room, and we had our own version of Israeli folk dancing with records. We all remember records. I had a tzedakah box next to the telephone for Jewish National Fund, that whenever we made long-distance calls, we had to put some money in it for JNF and to buy trees in Israel. We also used it when I would use inappropriate, colorful language as a child. I would have to put some into that JNF pushka. And that is all to say that when it was time for me to go to school, in elementary school, through high school, I wore t-shirts with Hebrew or something about Israel. I would share my name out loud as a young child because I thought it was so cool that I had this Hebrew name. And I would use these Yiddish words that I heard in my family, but nobody else in school knew them. So yeah, it was kind of easy for me to be this target. Pennies, Jewish slurs, and swastikas. It made me angry. I got into my share of fights. It made my mom cry. And it made my dad show me how to fight. He was an avid boxing fan, and his hands were kind of thick like sledgehammers. So when I grew up, anti-Semitism was always around. It was just normative. We knew that any of us could face a challenge. But as I grew up, and I went to university, and I traveled to Israel, and I came back, and I started living into my 20s. I enter into rabbinical school. I see the world changing. People love Spielberg and Streisand. They never have anything bad to say. I know there's anti-Semites, but it's not like it was in the public square the way it was. Somebody would make a faux pas once in a while, some kind of mistake. But it seemed to have been changing. Anti-Semitism was for the extremists on the sides, not having a seat at the table. I was thinking the world was becoming more tolerant, more thoughtful, more equitable, and I was wrong. I remember thinking when I was first ordained, and that's more than 20 years ago now, that I would never make the big anti-Semitism sermons the way my rabbi did, because things were going to be different, and things in our country were getting better. France, I knew, was a struggle, other countries still a struggle, but it could never happen here in America, and I believed it. What is anti-Semitism anyway? Some people will say that it's just about this antagonism or hatred or saying not nice things against Jews or Judaism, and I think it's much more complicated than that. Early on, there's a history of anti-Jewish hatred for not following the majority religion of Christianity. It was a hatred based on religious terms. The Jews' rejection of a Christian Redeemer, and eventually the expanded accusations not just about Jews rejecting Jesus as the Redeemer, but also being the cause of his death. Allegations of Christ killer evolved into something called blood libels in the Middle Ages. Blood libels are when medieval Christian communities would accuse Jews of taking Christian children, sacrificing them, and using their blood for our Passover rituals. This is well documented. This wasn't one or two things. There's a lot of historical evidence that shows it in art and in literature and even in this country. In 1928, we had our own blood libel in upstate New York. Now, as time went on, hatred towards Jews transitioned in two other kinds of ways. One was a result of pseudoscience. It's not real science. But people in the 1700s and 1800s believed that this was real, cutting-edge science and intellectual ideas, and their pseudoscience and racial theories and eugenics classified Jews as weak, as inferior, as dangerous intruders into the human race. In other words, not fully human. Most years without COVID, we take our high school students to Washington, D.C. to go to the United States Holocaust Museum. And I'm drawn to this one panel of images in the museum that talk about the Nazis' science, or in Germany, scientists measuring a Jew's nose and how big his head was, and comparing that in data form to white Aryans of Germany, proving an inferior race. It's amazing. There's a third image. We talked a little bit about the this thing is driving me crazy, the religious idea. We talked about the pseudoscience, and the third one emerges from Jews being put in a position of collecting taxes and collecting interest, being money lenders. You know, in Jewish tradition, a Jew can't ask another Jew of interest, in business. And that was true in the Christian world too. So, since Christians were the majority, Jews often were in these money lending roles. That was a place where they could be pushed into. So that's what they did. And how many of us just love the IRS and think that it's our favorite institution in the country? Whenever somebody's going to take something out of our pockets, we tend to feel a little bit of resentment or anger. And that's what happens towards the Jewish community. Jews moved into this space and was used to illustrate how Jews were greedy or cheats or cheap. The kind of propaganda that evolved into one of the greatest, most well-known phony documents coming out of Tsarist Russia, called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. These protocols depicted worldwide Jewish conspiracy because Jews owned the banks and the media and all of the major institutions. I was never invited to a meeting, and I'm waiting for my cut. I bet so are you. It's ridiculous. And by the way, the document is still available on Amazon.com. So you have three shades of anti-Semitism that is out there: religious-based, racial-based, and money and power antagonism-based. And this is what we're seeing. With the hostage-taking a few weeks ago at the synagogue in Texas. Why them? Because the Jews had the power to release somebody from federal prison. Whoopi Goldberg's error the other day. I think it's sad that somebody of her integrity doesn't have a bigger picture, and she owned it and apologized. I think became a model for listening and apology And that is something worth acknowledging and respecting. We should all be able to listen, acknowledge, and apologize. One of our students in this congregation this week got an email with a swastika inside of a Jewish star. Some kid thinking that it's funny. It's not the only one. These issues are still real. So what do? I told you my experience that it was always around me. Then I thought it was kind of over, mostly in this country, except for the fringes. Now we feel like it's pretty thick again. Colorado has one of the highest rates in the country. What are we going to do? We saw 3 kinds of anti-Semitism, 3 versions of the same beast. So now what do? I think there's people that are talking about security, and that's important. And if people are going to come into our house, we have to take care of them. But that's not how we fight anti-Semitism. Dr. Deborah Lipstadt, who's a scholar of the history of the Holocaust at Emory University in Atlanta, she wrote a piece in the Forward a couple of years ago reflecting on the attempted massacre in a synagogue in Halle, Germany. Do you remember this? A gunman tried to get into the synagogue right after the Pittsburgh synagogue attack and the attack on the mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. Well, somebody tried to get entry into this German synagogue on Yom Kippur with the intentions to open fire, and he was unable to enter. He killed 2 other people that were nearby. And Deborah Lipstadt, wrote a piece called "The Best Way to Fight Anti-Semitism." She put a colon there, and she gave the answer. Jewish joy. I'm with Lipstadt. Jewish joy. A historian of anti-Semitism says something dramatic and poignant. She wrote at that time, "As much as I worry about what anti-Semites might do to Jews, I worry even more about what we might do to ourselves because of anti-Semitism." She nor I want us to celebrate Judaism as an act of defiance or to be anti-Semitism. Everyone should be anti-Semitism. I'm anti-racism. I'm anti-xenophobia. I'm in favor of everybody trying to be the best person that they could possibly be without hurting another. What does it mean to be anti-Semitism? God bless you. It means to be human. So what should we do? What do we really do? I think when we learn about attacks, we should respond with tzedakah to help and heal a broken world. When we hear about vandalism, we buy a Jewish book and donate it to the public library. For every anti-Semitic act and accusation, news piece, take it as an opportunity to engage in a mitzvah. You want to say a mitzvah is a commandment? Great. You want to call it a Jewish sacred responsibility? Groovy. You want to see it as an invitation to do Jewish? Love that. Pick. However you take mitzvah and own it, that's what we're going to respond with. We hear something about hurting the Jewish community, we light Shabbat candles, if that's not your typical practice. Invite friends for Shabbat dinner, even if it has to be on Zoom. Show up at synagogue, even online. Send some tzedakah to help us support an Afghan refugee family on our campus fleeing the Taliban. I want to share this for my conclusion with you. And I just saw it today, and I thought it was pretty outstanding. Jordana Horn is a journalist, and she writes on this blog for Jewish parenting called Kveller. Kveller, K-V-E-L-L-E-R, like when my grandmother would kvel, like, do we know that word? Some of us? Good. So it's called Kveller. So this Jewish news site for families and a blog, it's a great piece, and she wants to remind us about not hiding who we are. So she already had me at hello. I was with her. And she wants us to remember that Jewish life and Judaism matter not just to me or her as individuals, but it matters to the world. I'm still with her. And then she quotes Michael Twitty. Michael Twitty is a black and Jewish culinary historian and author of Kosher Soul. It's kind of cool. You should check it out. Kosher Soul. And he shared his reflections on Twitter recently. He called it the 50 Joys of Jewish. He says, we aren't just traumas and issues. We aren't, oh hell, what's up with him now? We are our joys and things that are happy or peaceful or satisfying or substantial. That's who we are. She says he follows up with this gorgeous, she says, nice, he follows up with this gorgeous list of wonderful things that he loves about being Jewish and added, 100 blessings a day mean you look for every single thing to appreciate about being alive every day. Twitty knows that in Jewish tradition there's a teaching that we should say 100 blessings every day. So he wants to say 100 blessings a day means you look for every single thing to appreciate about being alive. And then Jordana Horn, the journalist, she writes this. In a world where non-Jews are always trying to tell me who I am, I will remind myself, and I'll remind you too, we are 100 blessings a day. We are history and laws and fighters for justice. We are ephemeral shelters from the storm. We are artists. We are thinkers. We are wordsmiths. We are family. And we will always try to be lights. We will always try to be lights, flickering against the darkness that tries to consume us. If you turn into our booklet, open up to the song all the way to the right.
It's up to us. It's up to us to make that joy, make that difference, to tell our stories. It's up to us to call ourselves to task, to sing what's good and true, to bring about redemption. It's what we were freed to do. For what's the point of being here? We're not moved to change our ways. Hallelujah, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise. We are carrying the stories of the ones who came before. But stories will be told of us when we are here no more. We commit ourselves to action. It brings meaning to our days. Hallelujah, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise. It's up to us to own the vision. We are an answer to a call. It's up to us to live the words we speak for the benefit of all. It's up to us to bow down deeply. There's a broken world to raise. Hallelujah, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise. Hallelujah, Shabbat. It's time to live our praise.
Aleinu L'Shabeach 586. We invite you to rise if you are able. 586 at the very bottom paragraph. We're going to continue with Aleinu there, and then we're going to jump to 591.
Aleinu L'Shabeach Radon HaKol V'Atet Gedula Liotzer Bereshit Shelo Asanu Kuguyei HaRatzot ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה. ואנחנו גורעים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Zichronam levracha. May their memories be for a blessing. If you are observing a yahrzeit or in a period of mourning, we invite you to rise for a moment, share the name of the one whom you are remembering, then we'll continue with the additional names from our community.
My mother, Lily Simon.
To those names we also remember in the period of Shloshim, those first 30 days, we remember Richard Close, the father of Abby Emdur. We're going to have a minyan online to support Abby and her family while she's still in Los Angeles. It's going to be tomorrow night after Shabbat, 8 o'clock our time, 7 o'clock her time. We hope folks will join and support Abby and her family. We also remember Agnes King, the grandmother of Mistia Zuckerman, and Mark Reed, one of our congregants and the partner of Judy Richtel. Those yahrzeits that we recall for this week that has passed, we remember Molly Bimstein, Shirley Blum, Anna Boonen, Murray Budner, Morris Cohen, Mitzi Cooper, Dorothy Ann Colson, Lillian Feinbaum, Hans Freistadt, Zelda Fried, Norman Zander Fried, Alvin Goldstein, Carol Hoke, Arthur Josephs, Kevin Klein, Faye Helen Cosberg, David Krimstock, Ruben Levy, Eva Levine, Anthony Levecki, Robert Schnorbus, Alan Silverstein, Helen Spiro, Barbara Sugar, Samuel Tobar, Ida Jacobson Wilner, Robert Buxbaum, Minnie Korn, Harold Gross, Stephen Halperin, Erica Hessner. Kaddish is on 598. We stand together. We support our friends, hold them up as we stand around them. 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. Bialma divrach hirute v'yamlich ma'achute. V'chayechon v'yamechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. V'agala v'izman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omeil maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal. Shemei d'Kurusha barechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tush berchata v'nechamata. Da'amiran bi'alma v'meru. Amen. Yehi shlamo Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'meru. Amen. Oseh shalom ben romav. Huya oseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimeru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to the bereaved here and everywhere. Let's all say amen. You can return to your chairs. Our closing prayer is going to be on this handout that we have, a melody that we sing from a wonderful duo They call themselves Nefesh Mountain, a Jewish bluegrass group, but they shared something quite sweet and deep after the tragic loss at the Tree of Life Synagogue, when all of us were gathering and so many hundreds from around the whole community, beyond the Jewish community, were coming together. Folks were singing this song all throughout the country, all throughout the world. It's a beautiful song, and it's a hopeful song. Join along. It'll be easy for you to follow.
Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there. I am but a voice, just a cry in the air, but I sing nonetheless through this pain we share. Oh, sweet friends, come and dry your eyes and hold each other by this tree of life. I'm angry and tired of this great divide, but I sing nonetheless with love on our side. Oh, sweet souls who feel broken now, we'll heal together somewhere, somehow. Time and again we have been let down, but we sing nonetheless, still whole and still proud. Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there.
A breath. We wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We're going to encourage you to wish your neighbors a Shabbat Shalom. If you don't know your neighbor, share your name. Wish a Shabbat Shalom. You don't have to shake hands unless you both agree, but you have to say and meet one person new. Good Shabbos, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Thanks.
Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. I'm glad I know now that I can do it myself. So that's good.
Awesome.